A View to a Kill is now 40 years old and remains one of the most entertaining and bombastic entries in the series. Roger Moore was back one more time for his seventh and final Bond film, and despite many thinking he was too old, we're so glad he returned, aged 58. By now John Glen was in his stride with his third film as director. All of the MI6 regulars continued, but it was, however, the final film for Lois Maxwell, who had played Miss Moneypenny in every outing since 1962's Dr. No. Oscar winner Christopher Walken was the perfect choice to play psychopath Max Zorin, and he remains one of the most popular villains in the series. His relationship with henchwoman Mayday is endlessly fascinating, and her character arc is amongst the strongest in the series. John Barry continued to outdo himself with another outstanding score that brilliantly complements the adventure. From his action cues to his achingly beautiful love theme, he weaved his magic and created the first US #1 Bond song with Duran Duran for the title track. Tanya Roberts played civil servant Stacey Sutton, caught in on the mission through her land dispute with Zorin. Despite the age gap, we think Roger is in honourable dad mode with her. Until the steamy ending, that is. Sheriff J.W. Pepper wasn't present, sadly, but we did get his alter ego in Dick Tracy, or whatever his name was, as part of the outrageous fire engine chase sequence in downtown San Francisco. We also got some of the very best set pieces in the entire franchise. From the skiing and snowboarding in Siberia, to the car and parachute chase in Paris, to the jaw-dropping finale on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. These are just some of the many parts that created a 007 classic, and whilst many fans dismiss it, we want to celebrate why it remains so original, iconic, and a fitting farewell for Sir Roger. We gathered together to discuss why we love the film so much, and it was great to have so many of you contribute with your thoughts. We're all gathered today, that sounds like a funeral, doesn't it? To celebrate A View to a Kill, the 40th anniversary. And I can't quite believe it's been that long. I happened to be alive at the time when it was out, can't remember it. But it's been part of our lives since childhood and almost can't remember it not being a part of our lives. We love it, and I've gathered a team of people who do love the film as well. So tonight is just going to be a celebration of Roger's last Bond film that is amazingly 4 decades old now. So before we go into that, we've got a crack team. We've got Chris, who's here tonight. Chris?
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. We've got Math.
Hello.
And we've got Kieran as well.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Very apt, Kieran. We might go into that later. But we've got 2 debutants here tonight. We've got, first of all, George. Now, George, it's been great getting to know you via our WhatsApp channel. Very sad. But yeah, there's been lots of good chats in that, and it's finally superb to see you face to face. So welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tom, for having me.
Brilliant. Did you become a Bond fan by osmosis, or did your dad get you into it, or?
No, quite the opposite actually. He's never been a Bond fan. I think like most people similar to our age. So I was born in '85, the year of A View to a Kill. I would have been roughly 10 years old when GoldenEye first came out, the film. So I was perfectly aware of that film. Didn't actually go to see it, but really got into the James Bond bug when the GoldenEye game came out. So I think that was simultaneous with Tomorrow Never Dies, wasn't it? So. I was just absolutely hooked by that point. I went to go see Tomorrow Never Dies, got the GoldenEye game, absolutely obsessed with it, played it with my brothers and sisters. And then as time went on, just collected all the VHS tapes. I actually managed to dig out the VHS tapes with the lovely spines, actually.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, I've actually dug out the View to
Oh, yeah.
So absolutely beautiful, so collecting all of those, the memories that came with that. And my first memories really of A View to a Kill was, I actually saw, I think Live and Let Die was the second film I ever saw on VHS. And I think the third one I saw was actually A View to a Kill. So you're seeing Roger Moore right at the beginning in his younger years, and then immediately jumping straight into his last film. So as a child, it that kind of put me off, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. But needless to say, as the years have gone by, I've matured in my views on that slightly.
Yeah, I mean it is a talking point. We will go into that, even though remember this is a celebration. That's crazy, isn't it? To think that a young Roger and an old Roger, but the young Roger, of course, was older than anyone would ever imagine a new Bond, the next Bond will be. Not necessarily saying I agree with that personally, but yeah, this is his final film. And Mark, I'll turn to you now. Now, Mark, we know very well from 007 GB and your channel views from Mark. So just tell us a little bit about that, for because not everyone might have seen your Instagram, your YouTube, Mark.
Yeah, well, great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. I kind of fell into it, really. I mean, my Bond fandom goes back to the dawn of time, or at least when I was a kid. So that's nothing new. But in terms of this whole social media side of things and doing YouTube and Instagram, I kind of fell into it by accident, really. Um, but it's been a happy accident, very happy accident, because I've ended up here with you fine folks and meeting a whole host of people, getting to do stuff with 007 GB, as you mentioned, attend events, hang out with John Glen, who I'm sure we're going to talk about in great detail. So yeah, that I kind of fell into it, but my fandom, my love, my appreciation for Bond has always been there. It's just a welcome, happy accident that I've fallen deeper into it with the whole social media stuff. So yeah.
Well, Mark's doing himself a disservice. He does all the media, social media for the club. Brilliant videos. Was Roger one of your favourites, Mark, growing up?
Absolutely. I
Oh,
mean, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not even going to try and wind you up and say, no, what are you thinking celebrating him in this movie? No, absolutely, 100%. When I was growing up, early 90s, I was born the year after the film came out, so I'm one of these guys who I wasn't fortunate enough to have a Bond film released the year I was born, which I've heard some people talk about before. But growing up in the early 90s, I think, like many people, on a bank holiday weekend, there was always two things on. It was the Grand Prix and it was a Bond film or Indiana Jones or Superman. It was one of those films. And when it comes to the Bond films, there were always, I think, four or five that seemed to be on at a bank holiday. You had Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, Live and Let Die, A View to a Kill, and The Living Daylights are the ones that kind of seared into my memory growing up. And I'm hard pressed to pick a favorite. I did a piece with the Radio Times invited me on to discuss
yes.
the best ever Bond film. And whilst I had to pick one to talk about, it changes, right? So at the minute this year, obviously we're celebrating 40th anniversary of A View to a Kill. So that is right there at the top of my list at the moment. But it changes between those five, you know. So yeah, Roger was a massive part of that growing up. You know, two of those movies I mentioned. So yeah, absolutely loved Roger, loved Roger's Bond, grew up watching him, and loved this movie. Yeah.
This is so good to hear, isn't it? I did a little poll on our WhatsApp group. It was quite interesting. All I did was, where would you rate this film? So top five, top 10, mid-table, bottom 10, bottom five. And the results were fairly predictable, unfortunately. Yeah. So only me and Math put it in the top five, I think. That was it. But yeah, apart from that, I think top 10, 20, something like 27% put it in the top 10. Half put it in the bottom 10. So yeah, it's in rankings it doesn't do particularly well, but that's good. That's going to change. Obviously, by the end of this, we'll have convinced everyone it is one of the best Bond films. No, that's fine if you love all the Bond films. Rankings don't really matter, do they? But it's when we hear a little poo-pooing of Roger's age and the film is rubbish and that kind of thing. We're gonna defend that. Right, Kieran. Obviously, you're a massive Roger fan. You won't hear any abuse of Roger tonight, will you?
100% not. 100%. Listeners will probably be sick of my prattling on about how much I adore this man and his entries into this series. And this is no exception. I love this film. Anyone who's listened to me before, again, I won't repeat myself, but they know how much I love Live and Let Die, Golden Gun, his early entries. This is one of those films that I discovered when I watched all of his tenure. So when I first discovered Bond, I worked my way through his films initially, getting to A View to a Kill, and it was one of those. It's very much a childhood favourite in that sense. I think I've always enjoyed this film. Of course, there's always been those criticisms from fans and non-fans alike, but it's never really swayed me. I've come away from this film at times, but I've also really very much got back into it over the last few years, and especially delving into it with the locations, of course, the Shanty event as well. It really has become a firm favourite, and there are so many wonderful elements to this picture. And not only the score, not only Roger's performance, but everybody, Christopher Walken, even the henchmen. They're all very much underrated, and this is most certainly an underrated entry in the franchise.
Fantastic, Kieran. Absolutely brilliant. Growing up, Math, we had it on video, didn't we, fairly early. I can't really remember a time when it wasn't shown probably most months in our house, was it really?
Yeah, no, definitely one of those that was constantly watched. Can't remember this, but this was I was born in 1985 as well, George. But in August, so after this was released, not that I would have been able to see it if I'd been born a month prior or two. But anyway, yeah, and also what helps with us in terms of watching it is that it's a massive favourite of our brother James's, the eldest brother, the one who doesn't appear on this, for everyone's benefit. But yeah, he's a massive fan of Roger and a massive fan of View to a Kill. But I've always loved this film. It's one that's so familiar to me. I just know or seem to know all the sound effects, all the intonations of every single line, or everything like that. It's so familiar to me, so comforting, and I've always loved it, and that's never going to change.
Haven't you watched it probably more than any other films, any other Bond films since we've started doing the podcast?
Yes, more than any other film as well as any other Bond film. But yeah, I don't know why. It's just so. Oh, I just love it. Yeah, I think it works as a Sunday afternoon Bond, but also you could watch it of an evening. I do think it's very entertaining and everything. There's so much to like about it.
Chris, can you remember? You must have been very young, obviously, when it came out. Can you remember much about it? Or
Again, I think for me, it was on heavy rotation when I was younger. I think it has. I think I distinctly remember having it on, tapes off the television, and it was probably the Bond film that I had probably seen the most. I think it was just. I don't know what it is about this particular film, but yeah, watching it over and over again. There was like three films that I watched on a loop: Back to the Future, this, and Ghostbusters.
yeah,
And I could just literally end, rewind it, and start again. Endlessly watchable, and so it always held a special sort of place for me. But like you said about the ranking, it's so difficult because you've just you might have another 10 films that you absolutely love. It doesn't make that film any more sort of precious to you. But yeah, I think all the sort of criticisms it's received over the years, I personally doesn't bother me at all. It's like I think there's an awful lot in there to like, and it's quite interesting as a child. Never questioned. I thought Roger Moore was just a grown up. Never thought, did he look too old? No, he was just an adult to me. In the same way you watch Ghostbusters and they're all like they're meant to be like 30, but they look like they're about 65 to you when you're like 10. So, but no, absolutely love it, and you know there's so many highlights, and obviously the score is definitely one of those. And I think this was probably the first Bond film where the score was actually one thing that I came away like thinking, wow, this really is, this is really something special.
well, math can come in there because the score for us was important because we had it on cassette, the soundtrack. Well,
Yeah, we did.
I mean, it was
So
unheard of in those days in the 80s to have the actual soundtrack on a cassette, but that was listened to in the car over and over again.
it was, yeah, when I mean whenever we could, it was in mum picking us up from school or something straight in the cassette player. I want to know though who would have bought it then? Would it have been James or would it have been?
Yeah,
Because
maybe because I think because the song was such a massive hit, and it
yeah,
might have just been, can we just get it? Oh, can we just get it? Don't maybe not
yeah,
a single, just get the whole thing because it was just. I mean, it's pretty short the main soundtrack,
yeah.
and this
Well,
last track is just a shorter version of the main title song.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we can start with the music because It's I always say with these things that the Bond films that people rag on all the time, oh, it's rubbish. But oh no, I love the score. Oh, it's rubbish. But oh, the main villain is one of the oh Mo. Oh, I love the locations. Oh, I love the action. Oh, right. Well, then why do you not? Anyway, but yeah, the music. First of all, the song.
Mm.
It's been widely publicised that John Barry sometimes doesn't get on with the artist he's writing and producing the song with. Here, everything went perfectly. Mark said before, if you have to, really, you had a gun to my head, I probably would say this is my favourite Bond song. I think it's just perfect for me, and the way then, of course, that it goes into the score, the gentle version of it on the flute for the love theme, the fanfare for the fire escape. It's just an amazing version of it. And yeah, the fact that the chorus in the song is completely upbeat, but then the chorus for Love Theme is so gentle. It's just but that's John Barry, he's so versatile. And I don't think we'll ever get that again. We always say this, we can't expect to get anything that grand and that amazing again.
Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. I love the film. I just want to point that out as
Yeah, yeah,
well.
good.
Just everything that you said there, Tom, the versatility of John Barry is astounding, really, isn't it? I mean, to have something which is, it pumps you up so much at the beginning, and then when you get to that love theme, it's, it's so nice and serene and, gentle, and it's just John Barry at his best, really, isn't it? I mean, what is he? Is it 11 in total? John Barry did. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I
it,
think that's
it,
right.
it
Yeah.
just feels like John Barry's scores got better and better every single time. And I always have this conversation with friends. I think about who's the most indispensable person in the quote unquote James Bond family. For me, at the very least, it's John Barry. I think he is an absolute genius, and there's no two ways about it. So, yeah, I mean, this is just one of many in his catalogue of just awesome scores that make you so excited to watch the film when you think about a certain theme.
I could argue that it's the best title song, it's the best love theme, and it's probably got the best action theme. I mean, maybe Honor Majesty's would probably just about pip it, and I know people compare it to that. But
Mm.
right from the start, the skiing, it's just there's no one else does action music like this anymore. Like I've said this many times, it's all like that now. It's not composed and sort of restraint with brass and kettle drums and all this kind of it works so well, and it's part of your childhood, I know, but I'd be really interested to know what people who watched it for the first time now think. Like, goodness me, this is lovely to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, orchestration must sound so strange to the
Yeah,
young audience. Really, there is a lack of melody, a lack of orchestration, and I personally missed out. I'm not to rag on the Craig films, but I feel a lot of those post Quantum of Solace, I felt those were missing.
well, you can always use the John Barry melody from On a Magic. Struggling. Anyway, no, not now, not now. So every time you do a post on Instagram, all of us, if it's to do with View to a Kill, the amount of times I've heard that lovely theme come on, it's just indelible, isn't it? With everything.
It's one of John Barry's best. Again, I've said this before in previous episodes. John Barry, very much like a classical composer, he's got his own unique style. As soon as you hear him, you know it's undeniably Barry. But then every single entry in the franchise is entirely different.
Yeah,
And for me, that's what Thomas Newman failed to accomplish in two films, but John Barry accomplished with 11.
yeah, yeah.
So no, for me, he's a genius. And I think this is, I mean, I love his later work in the Bond franchise, and this is absolutely up there, along with Octopussy and, of course, Living Daylights. And in terms of the actual title theme, this is probably number three on my list after Live and Let Die and
Oh,
Daylight.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
fair enough. I forgot Live and Let Die when I was thinking about
I
goodness.
mean, I was thinking about this recently, actually, just after Shanti. Listening to this theme again, you forget how good it is. I mean, obviously, we all know the story about how they approached Broccoli, or when are you going
Yeah,
to hire a decent artist and write a decent theme? The audacity and bombastic nature of Duran Duran to actually approach one of the biggest producers in the world. You can't fault them, really.
yeah.
And absolute class on their part for being that audacious. And I love that story. And the fact that he hired them as well, you know, that was showcasing a lot of trust on Cubby's part because we'd never really heard a theme song along these lines. You know, that rocky anthem with the guitars, which works again so well. It's such a juxtaposed soundtrack. You've got the melodies, but then you've got the guitars, you've got the rock element. It shouldn't work on paper, but it absolutely does. And as for Wine with Stacey, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
absolutely, it is sublime, that piece of music. It's up there with some of the melodies from Majesties. It's faultless. It's champagne to the musical ear. It really is. And Golden Gate Fight for a long time was my absolute favorite Bond piece
Yeah.
of Bond music. It was overtaken by Majesties, but ultimately that's still in my top three pieces of orchestral music. There's really not much we can fault about this film. The only element I still like it, but I would potentially change is obviously the snowboarding sequence and of course
Oh, music, yeah.
California Girls. It, it's just such a random oddity, but it does work. It's almost like the bell whistle from Golden Gun. It's you either love it or you hate it. But for me, I do love that insertion there. So it's a faultless soundtrack, and I'm praying this year for a La La Land extended release.
You can sort of get a few extra tracks on YouTube, which are lovely, because there's so many pieces of music that aren't on the soundtrack.
Yeah,
Even the approach to Shanti, just a
100%.
tiny little cue
Yeah.
that's 30 seconds, if that.
Well, you may remember, Tom, when we were at Shanti, I think I said to you, I just have that theme running
Yeah,
through my
yeah.
head all the time as we were walking around the chateau. It was incredible.
It was a little bit reminiscent of the music as Bond is going up as Hilary Bray up to the top of Peace Gloria. It's that kind of Barry sound, isn't it? It's so hard to not think about the individual scenes when you hear this. But the California Girls guys, remember this is a celebration, but it's always been used to, isn't it? You can't think of anything else. And if you don't like it, it's over in about 5 seconds. So, and then we get down to the proper Golden Gate Snow Job Bond theme.
Well, I have to say, as a slight caveat, I actually prefer their version to.
Oh yes, it's not the Beach Boys, is it?
I do actually prefer that version.
Watching it as a child, it was just fun. It was just a silly moment. Like you say, it's just inserted, and it's just something that's amusing, and then we go back to it. Great comparison to the slide whistle. But I understand, like, imagine watching, showing that to this generation and wondering what they would think of something like that. But it's all context, isn't it? Like, this is the first time we're seeing snowboarding on film, so it's all quite interesting, isn't it? To when it comes in a historical kind of context. Barry's score either side of that certainly make up for it. So like I say, I can deal with it for a couple of seconds.
I mean, people seem to have got over the Moonraker pigeon. That's now thought of quite fondly, isn't it? And it's just as silly. It's over in a flash. Get over it, like we say.
If these 5-10 seconds are your biggest criticisms of the
Yeah.
Patterson, then we've got a pretty good film on our hands.
What's the track called? Is it Destroy Silicon Valley or something? I mean, some of this music, when they're looking over, and everyone has a go at the "What a View to a Kill." I still don't understand why that's any more offensive than any other title, particularly. But
Wow. What a view to a kill.
that shots of them both looking, the music then is just absolutely incredible. We sort of did a rankings of all the pre-title sequences, and I'm sure most people wouldn't have expected it, but I think it's just like fifth. It's people will laugh at that, won't they? But it's all we want as Bond fans now is a bit of escapism, and you've got it all in. It's about 5 or 6 minutes. It's not even that long, and yet you get everything you want, Mark, don't you?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, nobody does snow action like Bond does snow action. People have come close. Christopher Nolan in Inception, obviously, that whole ending sequence, no spoilers, but that is so heavily inspired by Bond and what he's seen in A View to a Kill, as well as others.
Yeah.
Nobody does Bond on snow like Bond, basically. And the music, as you say, you only need to hear a few bars from each of those themes throughout the movie, and you know what it is. And the frustrating thing is, it's then stuck in your head for the rest of the day. Like, if you're not driving to work with that theme in your head, edging you closer to the speed limit, then there's something wrong. strictly within the speed limit, I hasten
Yeah,
to add.
Matt.
But it's just sublime. It's great. There's, the action that you want in terms of the skiing, the snowboarding that we're seeing, which at the time was just so exhilarating and thrilling, mixed with wonderful model work like the helicopter. Again, no spoilers to give anything away, but it's just a perfect blend of action, music, things that you haven't seen before, which Bond does so well. Other film franchises have copied it since, but Bond was the original. It was the OG, the best, whatever the kids are calling it these days. But it lives in my head rent free. That whole sequence.
These are sort of some action beats that only Bond could do, like the tying the thing to the guy's back to rip him off the little scooter thing or whatever you call it, the sled. That's just Bond, isn't it? It wouldn't appear in another film, I don't think.
No, you're absolutely right. And as Mark says, like Bond in snow, Bond skiing action is just, it's unique. It's brilliant, this sequence. And I feel like you would never confuse this with the Fiore's only skiing or, the On Her Majesty's or, World Is Not Enough or whatever it is. But it just feels unique even within Bond, this sequence. Maybe it's the sort of, I don't know, the location maybe, or his outfit in the white, E17 stay another day type coat. But and it's just, yeah, and the music, the music's just absolutely brilliant. It gets you. It's such a good start, isn't it, to the whole thing. But all the colours and the sounds are so iconic to me because they've been like I say, part of my childhood. They're like you say, the guy grapple. Oh, did you and the orange helicopter, the red flare, the colours, the green uniforms of the villains. It's just so iconic. Just before lockdown and a precursor to us starting this podcast, me, Tom, and Harry went round to Rob's, and he had this big screen up, and we could each put a pre-title sequence in, the name of a pre-title sequence into a hat, and then whichever one was drawn out, we'd watch. And this was the one that was drawn out. I think it was helped by the fact that both Rob and Tom independently put it in the hat. So that was brilliant. Just watching it again on that big screen, and then it's an absolutely cracking start. I love that it's I said about the location. We don't see any other action in the film in this location, and it's not like we're not introduced to any other characters who are then part of the film, which is I'm not saying every pre-title sequence should do that, by the way, but it's just it's good that there are these films that have that. So it is. Again, it's right up there. I struggle with rankings, whether it be the whole film, whether it be pre-title sequence, soundtracks, because I just find it difficult to say like, well, this is better than another pre-title sequence like Goldfinger. Like, well, I can't, how do you? I just can't compare them in my own mind. But there aren't many openings to a film that I enjoy more than this.
That's it, isn't it? This, you wouldn't change anything from the A View to a Kill pre-title sequence. That's all you need to know. Chris, has Ernie seen this? Because what does he think of like the sort of the Roger getting the girl bit at the end?
Oh, Commander Bond.
Call me James. It's 5 days to Alaska.
I think if you've watched one Bond film, I think it's just something you come to expect, isn't it? Again, as a child, it often just goes over your head. It's just like, oh, they're just, it's a man and woman, they're going to have a snog, that's it. There's nothing kind of, it doesn't go into too much sort of detail. So, no, I think he doesn't have a problem with it. And it is a great opening sequence, as a kid. You get thrown straight into the action, this incredibly dramatic score. It's a little bit silly, there's sort of, you've got this sort of mystery and this sort of it's almost a little kind of little short adventure, and it's just incredibly fun. And then you're just thrown straight into the title sequence and that music, and you can't help but be swept as soon as that music kicks in, the theme song. You can't be helped but be swept away with how dramatic and how exciting it is. So as a kid, this is probably one of the reasons we watched it so much, is that as soon as you press start, that's it, you're with it. There's not, as we've mentioned before, there's not many places. Only maybe further on, there's some bits where you can fast forward the talking. But that whole opening first quarter, it moves along pretty quickly. So I think as a child, I think it's one of those that I would definitely is a good introduction to Bond if you're wanting to do that.
I know people will say technically it isn't a standalone, but growing up, it just feels like a complete standalone. Because all it really is saying is Bond find, or it could have just said in the first M scene, or M could have said Bond or somebody else, you recovered this microchip from the dead body of another double O agent. That's all it needed. No, let's have our own contained bit. How would it? And I just think that's a perfect introduction for any Bond. I don't mind that being replicated in terms of that structure, but then you can do whatever you want with it. And John Glen, no, he can do this in his sleep, can't he? I mean, it's just second nature to him.
View to a Kill perfectly epitomizes it's the mission within the mission.
Yes, yeah.
And we know nothing about this mission apart from the fact he's in the Arctic, he's searching for this body, searching for this particular item on said body, and that's it. And it gets a brief mention later. It's really superfluous, but it's so good at the same time. And I didn't realize until watching the film a few weeks ago when he steals I thought it was a snowboard, but it's actually the front piece of the snowmobile. And
Yeah.
I never realized that. You learn something every day. And I thought that elevated the scene even more because it's Bond literally utilizing all of these elements around him. Oh, what can I use? Right, let's grab that. And off he goes. So it's the gift that keeps on giving.
That's what we want, isn't it? That is so Bond. Like an Octopussy, the tires burst. Right, there's a train track ahead of me. Let's try this. It's audacious, isn't it? It's nobody else who's going to do this, and oh, you just want to watch it again, don't you? Every time you're talking about this.
Always been one I was slightly mixed on, but I find as I've got older, I'm not 30, it genuinely has some really amazing moments in it. And you know, people say, oh, yeah, Roger's getting too old and Roger's this, but he's still charming as anything. You know, it's Roger. How can you not love Roger? You know, Christopher Walken is an inspired choice of villain as Zorin. I think the settings are amazing. Grace Jones is fantastic. I mean, I couldn't think of any more perfect casting. There, you know, John Barry's score is wonderful. Wine with Stacy is such a gorgeous track, and View to a Kill by Duran Duran is just, yeah, it's, pardon the pun, a killer tune. So I'm happy to celebrate the film with everyone.
So I was probably about 8 or 9 when I first saw View to a Kill, and it was the second Roger Moore film I saw after Moonraker. And because, of course, View to a Kill was a few years after Moonraker, the thing I did notice was Roger's age, of course. Obviously, he did look much older, and I think as a kid that kind of was a bit kind of weird, kind of kept me embracing it. But in recent years, I've seen it a few more times in the last few years. It has really grown on me. I've really got into View to a Kill a lot more and grown to appreciate it a lot more, you know. And if, you know, and I know, because as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, the main reason that people don't gravitate towards View to a Kill, don't hold it in high regard, is because of, like, Roger being too old and, you know, being, like, surrounded by a lot of much young women in the film. But if you're able to look past that, you should be able to see that View to a Kill is a really great Bond film. I mean, well, Christopher Walken is the villain. I mean, you got to start there. I mean, can you really go wrong? Do you need to be a casting director to make that call, you know? And he's just great. He just has, you know, he just, every scene he's in, you just can't help but, like, take your eyes off him. And even the other supporting villains, like Carpini, I think he's really great as well. He sort of just has this sort of, like, matter-of-fact way about him. And he's sort of, he has that thing, you can't quite read him. You don't know what he's going to do next. He's just, like, so loyal to Zorin. And that's what makes a character like him scary as well. He'll do anything that Zorin will do. As well, obviously, Mayday, you know, Grace Jones and Mayday. She's just so iconic and formidable. And, like, Dr. Mortimer as well. He's a great villain. He just looks kind of maniacal, has that kind of, like, you know, classic sort of old school old man villain look about him, which is just so good. Love. John Glen just, you know, really does make View to a Kill such a, like all these Bond films, he makes them such a great cinematic experience. I mean, the pre-title sequence, you're just, every time I watch it, it's just so focused in, because you're kind of, Barry really does tell a story, tells you everything you need to know with the music, and John Glen's editing, you know, when you first see the skiers and then Bond recovering the dead body of a 003, He really does, captivate you, pulls you in immediately, and then you're like straight into the action. It's just so well done. The score as well, of course, it's like Barry really deserves full credit for this, because he, composed pretty much like 3 theme tunes. There's the one with Stacey theme, which is the romantic theme, and then you've got the fanfare. And both of those accompany the View to a Kill song, which is actually probably a favourite. View to a Kill and Living Daylights would be my 2 favourite Bond songs as well. And of course you've got the Snow Job theme, which is just one of the best action themes as well. It's just so cool. And then finally mentioned the ending, the climax, God, the Maya Massacre. That is really, definitely one of the most brutal scenes in the entire series. Really does kind of like makes you go like, oh, this is a bit too much. But the climax itself in the mine, the build up, the set piece, the flood, and then escalate to Golden Gate Bridge, that's just such a good climax. Like all the John Glen climaxes are great because they have that, they pretty much all of them have that trope of having some big action scene in some huge location, and then the action moving on to some kind of vehicle, and you just moves you along, and it really gets the tension, the excitement just builds when they're constantly moving from A to B. Empire State Building, King Kong, Golden Gate Bridge, Zorin's airship. That is what, it's so iconic. It's such an iconic image, I think, for Bond fans, and and even film fans. The Golden Gate Bridge, as the Eiffel Tower, of course, they're all iconic landmarks in their own right, but particularly Golden Gate Bridge, that really comes into the forefront in View to a Kill, because I don't think if I'm right in film history, you never had any scenes filmed on the bridge, certainly action scenes. You'd had obviously shots of it in famous films before, like it's quite iconic in like Vertigo when you see Kim Novak standing on the bridge and her jumping into the bay and then the bridge is in the background, but you'd never had an action scene on the bridge before. So yeah, it's just that really does make it, it's almost like a character of the film. It is a set piece, and that great Bond trope of making the best part of a location, existing part of a location that's something already there, and incorporating it into the films. Yeah, that really does put the cherry on the cake for me. So yeah, happy 40th anniversary of View to a Kill.
That's the end of part 1 of our A View to a Kill 40th anniversary. But keep watching for part 2, where we go into more depth on this classic Bond film.